Hey nerds, in this video, I'll be ranking how fun I think all of the new commanders from Bloomburrow and the respective commander decks are. Let's get into it. First up is Alana Divergent Storm. It's a 5-mana 3/5 otter wizard. Whenever you cast a spell, if it's the first instant spell, the first sorcery spell, or the first otter spell, other than this card you've cast this turn, you may have target opponent draw a card. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So we have like an Izzet spell slinging otter that also cares about otters, and you get a copy of the first instant sorcery or otter spell you cast other than Alania? Alania. Close enough. I think that actually seems pretty fun for an Izzet commander. I can see extra turns being incredibly busted with this, and having an opponent draw a card actually isn't a downside sometimes. Like, you can abuse that in some way. So yeah, I think we'll put that in fun. Next up is Arthur Marigold Knight. This is a 5-mana Vinjeskai for a 4/5 Mouse Knight with haste. Whenever it and at least one other creature attack, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Return that creature to its owner's hand at the end of combat. That's a really powerful effect. 5-mana 4/5 with haste. You get a look at 6 and just put a creature into play. So you can put like a Tali into play, which seems, well, no, the Tali is green in it, so it has to be Gruul. But you get the point, right? Like, it seems like a really powerful effect. A Sun Titan, right? You can treat like a Sun Titan into play, especially in blue. You have like Brainstorm. Colorless, you have Scroll Rack. There's the white enchantment Penance, I think, that you can just put a card on top of your library. So you can manipulate this like super easily, and then you just get it back into your hand. So you can do it again each turn. Seems really good. It also seems really fun. So we'll put that up in very fun. Next up is Balin the Haymaker. This is a 3-mana 4/3 Rabbit Warrior. In Anaya, you can tap 2 untapped tokens you control, add 1 mana of any color, tap 3 untapped tokens you control, draw a card, tap 4 untapped tokens you control, put 3 +1/+1 counters on Balin the Haymaker. It gains trample until end of turn. That seems like a really good token commander. I mean, any token, doesn't matter what they are. Now, what I'm thinking about is like Agatha's Soul Cauldron, and then Scurry Oak, or the new Eldrazi from MH3. I don't know. Hold on. I'm curious how they read. Yeah, so Scurry Oak says 1 or more counters, so you couldn't like put 3 counters on, get 3 tokens. But Agatha's Soul Cauldron seemed like it might be good, especially if you can abuse like the +1/+1 counters in some way. Or just any token. This can be a Naya Food, Naya Treasure, Naya Clue. I'm going to put this in fun. I'd put it maybe in very fun, but I think it's going to be just like really powerful no matter how you put it. And as much as I like powerful commanders, it's a little too open-ended for you to put it in like very fun or wanna build, but I think it will be a fun commander to see. Next up is Bello, Bard of the Brambles. This is a 3-mana 3/3 Raccoon Bard. During your turn, each non-equipment artifact and non-aura enchantment you control with mana value 4 or greater is a 4/4 elemental creature in addition to its other types, and has indestructible haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. There's a lot of words. It's a Raccoon Bard that cares about non-equipment and non-auras that are mana value 4 or greater. It seems really unique, and while that effect actually, I'm putting this in very fun. I think it's just like a very fun commander, right? I don't know if I want to build this. I think the other commander in the set is actually, which we'll get to later, is actually a bit better, or a bit more fun, but I do like this commander. Next up is Beza the Bounding Spring. 4-mana 4/5 Elemental Elk in its mono white. When it enters, create a treasure token if an opponent controls more lands than you. You gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you. Create 2 1/1 bluefish creature tokens if an opponent controls more creatures than you. And then you draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you. Like mono white catch up, as a commander, I think that's just kind of fun. It's great in the 99, especially like an Omnath decks where you're doing like elemental things. But in terms of like its own, helming its own deck, I'm not that interested in this. You can control these effects, I think, pretty easily if you wanted to build a mono white deck, but I think there are better and like more interesting options. Next up is Bria Riptide Rogue. This is a 4-mana 3/3 Otter Rogue in Izzet. Has prowess. Other creatures you control have prowess. And whenever you cast on a creature spell, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. And Izzet Spellslingers, it seems fun. It seems more fun. I think more fun than tokens. You can actually get this card. I think it's from the starter decks, like the decks that are meant to play against each other, like 60 card decks. So this card will be easy to get at least. prowess is good, and giving other creatures prowess is really good. Yeah, I like this. And the art's really good. Next up is Byrek, Long Ear of the Law. It's a 6 mana 4/4 Rabbit Soldier in Selesnya, has Vigilance. When it enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on it. Okay, so you can put 2 counters on itself, because it says, or a counter rather on itself, because it doesn't say on another creature. So that's really cool. So this is a 6 mana 5/5 Vigilance that immediately can double its, well, not immediately, needs haste, but that's pretty easy to do in Selesnya. Or you can put it on a Hangerback Walker, Walking Ballista, anything, right? Like, and then when it attacks, you double the counter. That seems so good. How fun is that? I think I'm gonna put that. I think that's pretty fun. It's close between the Izzet Spellslinger and this. It's definitely a powerful effect. I'm trying to think if I'd really want that over and over again from the command zone. I mean, I would, but I don't know how fun that would be. I think in the 99 though, if you're building like a dedicated rabbit deck, solid. Next up is Camilla, the Seed Miser. This is a 3 mana 3/3 Squirrel Warlock in Golgari. Has Menace. Other squirrels you control have Menace. Whenever you sacrifice 1 or more foods, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. Then you can pay 2, forage, and put a +1/+1 counter on each other squirrel you control. To forage, you exile 3 cards from your graveyard, or you sacrifice a food. So it's 2 mana, sack a food ideally, put a +1/+1 counter on each other squirrel you control. But when you sack a food, you'll make a squirrel, and then you'll put a counter on that squirrel. If you have Chatterfang in play, and you sack a food, you make 2 squirrels. You make a bunch of food, you then make a bunch of squirrels. Seems really fun to me. Maybe a little bit linear, and maybe it's just because I like Golgari and squirrels, but it seems solid. Next up is Clement the Worrywart. This is a 3 mana 3/3 Simic Frog Druid with Vigilance. Whenever it or another creature you control enters, return up to 1 target creature you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. Frogs you control have tap, add a green or a blue, spend this mana to only cast creature spells. So this seems, I almost don't put this in wanna build. This is close. I like frogs, so I like building Simic Frogs. I love the idea of that. I like Sultai more because I love Gitrog. I think I'm gonna put this at wanna build. Now, hear me out. This is sort of a Cloudstone Curio at home from the command zone. So if you play a 3-drop, and it's up to 1 reach, so you don't have to do it, but you can chain things together where you have a 2-drop ETB 1-drop and then like an Ornithopter. And you can like return all these creatures to your hands, replay them, and do some weird like Simic Storm stuff. It gets the brew juices going, which is why it's at wanna build. Next up is Dragonhawk, Fate's Tempest. This is a 5 mana 5/5 bird dragon in mono red with flying. Whenever it enters or attacks, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 4 or greater. You may play those cards until your next end step. At the beginning of your next end step, Dragonhawk deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still exiled. So it's a mono red like mid-range commander, because you just want a bunch of big big red or medium red maybe if you played Canlander. It seems cool. I don't know how fun. I'll put this in the kind of fun, but I'm willing to have my mind changed on it. I think there's a lot of mono red commanders, and I don't know how unique this is or how reasonable you can get a bunch of 4-drops in play, but I like Bird Dragon, so that's fun. Next up is Aluge, the Shoreless Sea. This is a 4 mana, 1 and triple blue, mono blue elemental fish. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of islands you control. When it enters or attacks, put a flood counter on target land. It's an island in addition to its other types for as long as it has a flood counter. And then the first instant or sorcery spell you cast costs blue or 1 generic less to cast for each land you control with a flood counter on it. It's weird. So it says cost blue or 1 generic less, which I've never seen before. So does that mean mono blue spells can be free with this? The first instant and sorcery spell you cast each turn. So instants are great because you can cast it on your opponent's turns. I think I'm reading that right. It's flood counters. It's so weird. I'm gonna put this in middle of fun, top end of fun here. It's a mono blue fish, and it's flood counters and cheating things. I just like the flavor of it. We'll put it there. All right. Next up is Phineas, Ace Archer. This is a 2 mana 2/2 rabbit archer in Selesnya. Has vigilance and reach, as it should. And whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. That's a token or a rabbit. Then, if you control creatures, if the creatures you control have a total power of 10 or greater, draw a card. Seems pretty good as a rabbit commander. So you put counters on it, or I'm sorry, not on it, on other creatures and tokens, and then you draw. Seems pretty solid. I'm gonna put it like, I think behind the other rabbit commander. I don't know if I'm like really interested in building this, but again, if you want to build rabbits, seems great. Next up is Flubs the Fool. This is a 3-mana 0/5 Frog Scout. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card if you have no cards in hand. Otherwise, you discard a card. First, art, fantastic. It's, I think, a tarot card art, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I want to build this just because it seems so wild, but I don't know if I will, because I feel like it's going to take a lot of work. I feel like it would be such a project to figure this out. Maybe. I'm going to put it wanna build. TBD. We might move it at the end, but right now I'll put it wanna build. It just seems like a fun card. Next up is Gev Scaled Scorch. It's a 2-mana 3/2 Lizard Mercenary in Rakdos. So it's an outlaw, has ward, pay 2 life. Other creatures you control enter with a +1/+1 counter on them for each opponent who lost life this turn. Alright, so if you can deal 1 damage to each opponent, each creature will enter with an additional +1/+1 counter on them. And whenever you cast a lizard spell, Gev deals 1 damage to target opponent. Is this a lizard deck? I love this. It's so cute. Very fun. Maybe not actually very fun. No, I'm gonna put it very fun. I like the idea of building a lizard deck. I don't know why, it just kind of gets me. Put Jasper Flint in it, and other outlaws from Thunder Junction that have a bunch of lizards in Rakdos. Love it. Next up is Glarb, Calamity's Augur. A 3-mana 2/4 Frog Wizard Noble in Sultai with Death Touch. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play lands and cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library. And then you can tap Surveil 2. I don't know if this templating looks weird to me. I feel like tap Surveil 2 would be higher up on the card. I don't know if it's just a lot of text and then a tap ability at the end. But this is, if you want to build a frog commander, this is the one I would go with. On that note though, I'm going to put it, I think, just in the middle of fun here, towards actually the tail end of fun. My biggest issue with building a frog deck with this commander is it personally doesn't care about frogs, but I want to play Gitrog Monster, so it's probably the choice. Next up is Hazel of the Root Bloom. 4-mana 3/5 Squirrel Druid in Golgari. You can tap, pay 2 life, tap X untap tokens you control, add X mana in any combination of colors. That is a powerful effect. At the beginning of your end step, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. If that token is a squirrel, instead create 2 tokens that are copies of it. That seems really good with like black market connections, because you make those 3/2 tokens that are changelings, so you get 2 3/2s. And you get to generate just a whole bunch of mana. So you can easily Finale of Devastation for like Craterhoof. I mean, you need to untap those tokens, but, well, it's actually not even token creatures, it's any token. So it could be food. Clues are actually really good with this because you don't have to tap clues to crack them. So you can just tap a bunch of clues, add a bunch of mana, then crack half of them. That seems solid. Seems like a very fun commander. I'm gonna put it, I think, here, like right in the middle. Next up is Helga Skittish Seer. 3-mana 1/3 Frog Druid. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4 or greater, you draw a card, gain 1 life, and put a counter on it. On Helga, rather. And then you can tap, add X mana of any one color, where X is Helga's power. Spend this mana to only cast creature spells with mana value 4 or greater, or creature spells with X in their mana costs. Sorry, my brain shut down there for a second. I wasn't sure if I was about to read spells with X in their mana cost, but it's only creatures. So it's a better Cullen, Bant, value. Seems good. I like the idea of building like an X spells deck with like Hangerback Walkers. 4 mana or greater. That's so much text. You cast a big creature spell, you draw a card and gain a life and put a counter on this. And it's a mana dork. I'm trying to think if I want to put that like, I'm going to put it like here, I think above the fish. I want to put it in very fun. I'm tempted to, but I feel like that deck just becomes like a Bant good stuff commander. Maybe you could build a Bloomburrow only version of the deck, and that still might just be strong enough to be worth it. Next up is Hugs Grizzly Guardian. So it's X and 4, so X, 2 red, 2 green, for a Gruul Badger Warrior with Trample. When it enters, exile the top X cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. This is a kind of fun commander for me. It's not, I don't know, it's generic. It's Gruul lands. I don't know. I think it's cool in the 99, but I don't know how interested I am in this as like my commander. Next up is Castrol the Windcrested. It's a 5-mana 4/5 Azorius Bird Scout with flying. Whenever one or more birds you control deal combat damage to a player, choose one. You put a bird creature card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Put a +1/+1 counter on each bird you control, or draw a card. Birds finally have another commander. This is a really good bird commander too. I'm gonna put this in Wanna Build. Now that might seem weird if you don't know me, but I had a foiled out bird deck when I first started playing Commander that was like pretty cheap. It was really fun, and this seems like a great bird commander. I know people think like Kindred, Typal, or Tribal decks, whatever you want to call them, are like pretty boring, but personally, I don't know. I just like birds, and I think this is a cool bird commander. I like the art, powerful effect, and those finality counters you can get rid of pretty easily. Next up is Kitsa Otterball Elite. 2-mana 1/3 Otter Wizard, mono blue. Vigilance, Prowess, tap, draw a card, then discard a card, so Merfolk Looter. And then pay 2, tap, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if Kitsa's power is 3 or greater. That'll be super easy to do. You need to cast literally 2 non-creature spells. So you opt, brainstorm, whatever the other opt is that's surveilling. I can't remember the name of it. You know the one. Not consider. Is it consider? It might be consider. And then you get to just copy a spell. A 2-mana 1/3 Vigilance. That's just such a pushed card. I'm gonna put this at the tail end of fun. I think it's just gonna be super easy to break, which is obviously some people might really enjoy that. But again, this seems like this looks more fun to me in the 99 than as its own commander. But I still think it's like a fun card. Next up is Lumara, Bellow of the Woods. 6-mana Star Elemental Bear. It's mono green. Vigilance, Reach. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. And when it enters, mill 4, then return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This is a kind of fun commander for me. I like lands, but I'm not interested really as having this as a commander. Not to say it's bad, it's just not what I'm interested in. Seems great in the 99 though. Next up is Mabel, Heir to Cragflame. 3-mana 3/3 Mouse Soldier. Other mice you control get +1/+1. When it enters, create Cragflame, a legendary colorless equipment artifact token, not a creature, it's an equipment. With equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste, and equip 2. So it's a Mouse Lord, and it gives you an equipment that you can put either on it or any other mouse you control, or any creature for that matter. You can build this Voltron, you can build this just as a mice deck. Just the art's great. I'm gonna put this under, I kind of want to build this just to see if we have enough mice. I don't know if we do, but it's very possible I start working on that and I'm like, oh, okay, it's really not possible. But just the art, the flavor, I know, this is just such a cool set. Next up is Maha, it's Feathers Knight. This is a 5-mana 6/5 elemental bird, mono black. Has flying and trample, and ward, discard a card. And then creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1. So I'm gonna put this at the bottom of, I might put it at not fun. I'm gonna put this at not fun. And that might be a controversial take, but this isn't an interesting commander to me. It's definitely degenerate, not degenerate, that's too strong of a word. It's definitely like a powerful commander, especially with Korvek, I think. The one that has other creatures get -1/-1 because your opponents just can't play creatures until they kill this thing, or the Korvek. But I'm not interested in that as a deck. I might put this in my Mikaeus deck because it's a non-human and mono black, but I'm not building this commander deck, and I have no interest in doing so. Next up is Mr. Foxglove. This is a 5-mana 3/5 Fox Rogue. It's Bant with lifelink. When it attacks, draw cards equal to the number of cards in defending player's hand, minus the number of cards in your hand. If you didn't draw cards this way, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That seems cool. I love this flavor. I want to build this. I don't know if I want to build this, but I'm going to put this like right up here. That seems really cool. Lifelink, it's a rogue, it's Robin Hood. I love this. I love this so much. Sorry, I'm just trying to think how to like really break this. There are plenty of ways. Let me know in the comments. Next up is Mrs. Bumbleflower. This is a 4-mana 1/5 Rabbit Citizen with Vigilance. Whenever you cast a spell, a target opponent draws a card. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains flying until end of turn. If this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, you draw 2 cards. Well, thankfully Bant has no shortage of ways to stopping opponents from drawing cards. You have Narset. I'm sure you have other ways that I'm absolutely blanking on, but then you get to draw 2 cards and it's each turn. Yeah, whenever you cast a spell, so a bunch of instants. I'm not a fan of Group Hug, but I kind of want to build this. I didn't look at the commander decks all that much, to be honest. I just kind of jump into these as blind as I can be. And I know this is like the Group Hug commander, and I haven't even looked, but that seems like, you know, you don't want to be giving opponents a bunch of cards, but you got to put a counter on creatures. I'm into this. Next up is Mira, Trash Tactician. This is a 3-mana 2/4 Raccoon Warrior. At the beginning of your first main phase, add red or green for each raccoon you control. What? Whenever you expend 4, you gain 3 life. You expend as you spend your 4th total mana to cast spells during your turn. So, okay, so it's once a turn. If you spend 4 or more mana during your turn, you gain 3 life during a turn. Whenever you expand 8, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Wait, do I want to build this? We have so many commanders I want to build. It's a raccoon deck. I'll put that in very fun. I'm not sure if I'm going to put that into build. I gotta see how many raccoons we actually have. Next up is Voxy. I mean the infamous Cruel Claw. This is a 3-mana 3/3 Weasel Mercenary in Rakdos. Has Menace. Whenever they deal combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. Okay, yeah, I kind of want to build a Weasel deck. Yeah, I want to build it more than Flubs. It's Rakdos Weasels. I've been wanting to build a Rakdos deck. I literally have a Rakdos deck sitting here that haven't touched. So maybe this, if I open this, maybe I'll do that. Next up is the Old Acorn Gang. What are these cards? 5-mana 5/5 Squirrel Warrior, Golgari, Menace, Trample, and Reach. Okay. Squirrels you control have tap. Target squirrel gets +2/+2 against Trample. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay. And whenever one or more squirrels you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. What is happening in this set? First off, if you're just listening to this art is just 3 squirrels, and they're old, and I love it. And they have spikes in their tails. This is wild. Menace, Trample, and Reach are good keywords. 5-mana 5/5. And the squirrel's just been knocking out of the park. But this is the tail end of very fun. It might be a little too linear, and maybe I'm, again, just showing my Golgari bias. But I just love that you can use these squirrels. Squirrels you control have tap. Target squirrel gets +2/+2. I think that's just fun. Next up is Vren, the Relentless. This is a 4-mana 3/4 Rat, Rogue, and Dimir. As Ward 2. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. At the beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 black rat creature tokens. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each other rat you control, where X is the number of creatures your opponents controlled that were exiled this turn. That's a mean commander. Seems fun though. I'll put that the tail end of fun, I think. You have to remove your opponent's creatures a lot. Well, that were exiled, not that are in exile. So in theory, if you can give your opponent tokens in Dimir, which you could with not Mere Battlesphere, Genesis Chamber, right? So if you have a way of giving your opponent a bunch of mirrors with Genesis Chamber, and then if you, this creature gets +1/+1 for each other rat you control. Yeah, so as long as you have enough rats, and you can Pestilence, and kill all the mirrors, they all get exiled, and then you can get a bunch of rats. So I feel like that might be a way of doing this. Yeah, I think you just have to give your opponents tokens, because it doesn't check that they're still in exile, just that they were exiled. So that might be a way around to playing a whole bunch of removal. Oh, actually, with that in mind, I'm gonna put that in very fun. Yeah, you give opponents creatures or tokens that you can then easily kill. Next up is Wick, the Horrelled Mind. 4-mana 2/4 Rat Warlock. Whenever it or another rat you control enters, create a 1/1 black snail creature token. If you don't control a snail, otherwise you put a +1/+1 counter on a snail you control. You may pay Grixis, not Golgari. So a red, a blue, and a white. A red, a blue, and a black. Oh my, it is midnight and I'm recording this. You pay a Grixis, sack a snail. Wick deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to each opponent. Then you draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. I want to build this. There are a lot of commanders I want to build this set. So I saw this while I was traveling and I immediately started thinking of a deck. It's Grixis Rats. And then you make a snail. And then you get it seems just fun. I'm sure there's a way to break this. Torian Mauler is the first card that came to mind because it's a changeling and it gets super big super quick. So that's neat. Or you just make a black snail creature token and try to grow it as much as possible. Next up is Wildseer Scouring Maw. This is a 5-mana 6/6 elemental wolf in Gruul as Trample. And enchantment spells you cast from your hand have Cascade. I want to put this in wanna build, but I already have 7 commanders in there, and I'm not going to build 7 decks. So yeah, this seems like a fun commander. I have Pantlaza from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Really fun commander. I like Cascade. I like this is a unique take on enchantments. I'm thinking like enchantment creatures are how you're going to want to do this. So yeah, I really like this. Next up is Ygra, Eater of All. 5 mana 6/6 elemental cat, Golgari. As ward, sack a food. Other creatures, including yours and your opponents, are food artifacts in addition to their other types, and have 2 tap, sack this permanent, you gain 3 life. Whenever a food is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put 2 counters on this creature. This seems really good. It is super mean with Karn, the great creator, because they're food artifacts. Karn prevents them from activating any of their abilities, or if you use something like pest control and destroy artifacts, you can just kind of wipe the board. So that's something to keep in mind. And then this thing just gets huge. No keywords, but I don't know if that matters. I'm gonna put this in fun, like right here. Next up is Xena Valley's Voice. The 3 mana 1/3 bird bard in Jeskai has flying. It gets, oh my god, sorry. Next up is Xena Valley's Voice. This is a 3 mana 1/3 bird bard in Jeskai, has flying, and it gets +X/+O, where X is the number of other creatures you control with base power 1. Creature spells you cast have offspring 2. So you may pay an additional 2 as you cast a creature spell. If you do, when that creature enters, you create a 1/1 token copy of it. That seems pretty cool. So any creature, I don't really care about that middle line of text where it gets bigger for creatures with base power 1. That's just part of it having offspring. But every creature spell essentially is kicker 2, make a 1/1 copy of it. I really like that. I think that's powerful. I think you do some really like fun things with it. Yeah, I'm gonna put this. I think I'm gonna put it. This is tough. I think I'm gonna put it in the middle of very fun. This is tough. There's a lot of really good commanders this set. I feel like in the past few sets, there's been like a few that I'm like really enjoying, but all of these seem just like if I see them at the table, I'm happy. I feel this would be a really good set for commander. And then finally, we have Zoraline Cosmos Caller. This is a 3 mana 3/3 bat cleric in Orzhov colors. As flying, vigilance. Whenever a bat you control attacks, you gain 1 life. And whenever it enters or attacks, you may pay Orzhov, so white and a black, and 2 life. When you do, return target non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Finality counters aren't that big of a deal. You blink creatures, you can get rid of them. Nesting Ground's a great way of doing it. So if you want to build a bat deck, this is the commander for you. Also really funny with vampires, because a lot of vampires actually make bat tokens. So you could build Orzhov vampires with this and just coincidentally also get bats. I'm going to put this, I think, in the fun here. Yeah, I'm going to put that right in the top end of fun, I think. No, I'm going to put it third in fun. So there you have it. There's my fun ranking for all the Bloomburrow commanders. Sorry for any throat clearing. I've been traveling a lot and I'm probably a little sick. It's also super late at night here for me, so I'm doing my best to get this out for you in the morning. I would love to hear your thoughts on this set in the comment section below. What commanders you're looking forward to building. Have you got any pre-cons, any cards you've pre-ordered? And let me know what deck you want me to... I can't speak. And let me know what deck you want to see in a video. Alrighty, nerds. Oh, also, there's a Discord server now. You can find that link in the video description below. And if you want to do this tier list, yourself, I'll also have that link in the video description. Okay, for real nerds, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.